Hello class. Today I want to talk about adding and subtracting integers. It's a real simple process. Okay. So first we need to talk about what an integer is. So what is the definition of integers? Well, integers, they are the set of whole numbers and their opposites. So if we were to look at some examples of that, whole numbers are numbers like 4, 5, and 6. The opposites would be -4, -5, and -6, because they are the same distance away from 0, just on the other side of 0. So that's how we define integers. Well, in order for us to begin this lesson, we first need to talk about reading and writing integers. So integers occur all over the world, all around us. So here are some examples of that. So we've got three things, A, B, and C here. So what I want us to do is write these according to the integer situation. So the first one says 7 meters below sea level. So the way we would write that is, this below is a word that represents negative. So we would write this as -7 meters. And yes, the labels are important. B, a gain of 5 yards. Well, gain is a word that represents positive. So this would just be 5 yards. And we do not have to put a plus to represent positive. A loss of $3. Loss is a word that represents negative. So this would be a loss, -$3. And the dollar sign always goes in front of the number when we're representing money. So that's the first thing that we have to understand how to do, is read and write integers. Now let's go into adding and subtracting. Okay, so if I wanted to add and subtract numbers, basically we can build the model. Okay, and add means to put together. So if I gave you the question of 5 plus 3, well, that's really a +5 plus a +3. So that means I start off with 5 positives, and I add to that 3 more, which gives us 8 as a total. Okay, so the first one would give us an answer of +8. Well, if we have negatives, it works the same way. So we've got 3 negatives, and then I'm going to add to that 4 more negatives. So when I put all that together, what do I end up with? 7 negatives. So the answer to the first one was +8, and the answer to the second one was -7. So we see when our signs are alike, positive and positive, we get a positive answer. If we have a negative and a negative, we get a negative answer. But what happens if I have a positive and a negative for a set of numbers? Well, this is where we have to kind of think about things. So this one, if we build this says I'm going to have 5 negatives, and I'm going to put together with that 7 positives. Well, anytime you have a positive and a negative go together, that actually makes a 0 or a 0 pair. So really what happens is these numbers right here make 5 zeros. This is a 0, this is a 0, this is a 0, this is a 0, this is a 0. So I can actually throw those away. All right? I can't believe this little thing popped up in my video. But I can throw those away because those are zeros, so I can take them away. Okay? So if our signs are different, we actually subtract out all the 0 pairs, and we end up with just a +2 as an answer, because whatever is left becomes our answer. Okay? So if our signs are different, we subtract our numbers. Okay? So let's do one more. So in this one right here, we've got a -4 plus a +6 plus a -3. So when we have that, we start off with 4 negatives. We put together with that 6 positives. So if we were to stop there, my answer would end up being a +2, because these make zeros. But I still have to put together 3 more negatives. So I'm going to just add 3 more negatives into the situation. And we end up with positive, negative. So here's a 0, a 0, a 0, a 0, a 0. All these are zeros. So I'm left with just a -1 as my answer. So the rule basically for adding and subtracting integers, if your signs are alike, we're going to add our numbers and keep the sign. But if our signs are different, we're going to combine all the things that are alike in addition, because I can rearrange things in addition, okay, and then do one big subtraction problem. And whichever one is farthest from 0, whichever number has the greatest, what we call absolute value, that's the sign you take for your answer. So that's what we say for our rules. If your signs are alike, you add your numbers and keep the sign of the problem. If your signs are different, you subtract your numbers and take the sign of the number with the greatest absolute value. And that's how you add integers. Now let's talk about subtracting integers. Subtracting integers is a little bit different. Okay, subtraction, we know that subtraction means to take away. So in a problem like this first one, 7 take away 3, says I've got 7 positives, and I'm going to take away 3 of them, and whatever's left is our answer. So in this particular case, we end up with positive 4. On the next problem, it works the same way. If I had 6 negatives, and I took away 3 of those, I would end up with a negative 3 as my answer. But now the problem comes when I have 7 positives, and I'm going to do this instead of dragging them out. I'm going to just do them with pluses and minuses. If I had 7 positives, and it says take away 4 negatives. Well, I don't have any negatives to take away. Well, if you remember from one of the previous slides, we have one number that I can add into the problem that never changes its value, okay? And that is a 0. So if I were to add a 0, because a 0, when we look at integers like this, a 0 is represented by a positive and a negative. Okay, so if I add a few zeros in, I now end up with some negatives that I can take away. So if I added 4 zeros into the problem, I now have 4 negatives that I could actually take away. And now what do we have left for our answer? We actually have an 11. Okay, so what do I do with the 7 and the 4 to actually get an 11? I actually add them together. So the rule for subtraction is actually what we've learned in the past is an acronym called LCO, which stands for leave the first number alone, don't mess with it, change subtraction to addition, and change the next number to its opposite. So if we were to leave the first number alone, change subtraction to addition, and the next number to its opposite, we now go back to our addition rules, which says if our signs are alike, we add. If our signs are different, we subtract. We do the math, we come up with the right answer. So let's see if we can do a couple of questions real fast. Okay, and then we'll review the rules, and then we'll be done. So in this first question, we got 45 plus negative 36. It is a plus problem. So that means we're in good shape. We like plus. Okay, so that tells us, we ask ourselves the question, are my signs alike or are they different? In this case, they are different. So our rule says, subtract your numbers. So these 36 negatives will zap 36 of these positives, and we're left with, in this particular case, 9. Now, what kind of 9 will we have? It's going to be positive because the 45 has more. It's the farthest from 0. Okay. Now, in this one, we have a minus problem. So our rule is LCO. Means leave the first number alone. Don't mess with it. Change subtraction to addition. Change the next number to its opposite. It is negative, so I change it to a positive. Now we go back to our add rules. This problem is now gone. So our signs are different, so we now subtract. So we do 52, take away 16. Well, 52 take away 10 is 42. Take away 6 more is 36. Now, who's got more? The 52 has more, so it's a negative 36. Now, if we have a big long problem like this, what we're going to do, we're just going to look at all the minuses. Okay, this is where we stop focusing on leave the first number alone, and we go to the minus signs. So we come here. Here's our first minus sign. We're going to change minus to plus, next number to its opposite. Minus to plus, next number to its opposite. Minus to plus, next number to its opposite. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take all of our positives and put them together, take all of our negatives and put them together, and then do one subtraction problem. So here's a positive 12. Here's a positive 14. That gives us 26. Plus, now we've got a negative 7 here and a negative 8, which actually gives us negative 15. Now we have our signs are different, so we subtract and we end up with 11. It's going to be a positive 11 because the 26 has more. Okay, one last question. In this one, again, we focus on the minuses. So here's a plus, we leave it alone. Here's a minus, so I change minus to plus, next number to its opposite. Ooh, here's another minus, so I change it to plus, next number to its opposite. Now I'm going to go through and put all my positives together. I have an 18 and a 4, which gives me 22, plus 13, which gives me 22, 32, 35, and then plus negative 8. So we're going to do one subtraction problem. So 35, take away 5, gives me 30. Take away 3 more, gives me 27. Okay, and the 35 has more, so it's going to be a positive 27. So in review, if it's an addition problem, if your signs are alike, you add your numbers and keep the sign of the problem. If your signs are different, you subtract your numbers and take the sign of the number with the greatest absolute value. If it's a subtraction problem, you're going to change subtraction to addition, next number to its opposite, and then go back to your addition rules. And that's how you add and subtract integers.